This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Monday, March 4th, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning. Trump removed from primary ballots? The Supreme Court decides.
More victories on the table for Donald Trump.
We put on a rocket to the Republican nomination.
I'm Jackie Quinn.
Deadly wildfires in Texas still burning.
The largest fire in the history of the state of Texas.
I'm Clayton Neville.
Snow showers continuing Sunday in the Sierra Nevada.
Quite the impressive storm.
I'm Julie Walker.
On Wall Street, the S&P 500 index and the NASDAQ each open at record highs again this morning. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
VP Harris on a ceasefire plea for Gaza.
The judge overseeing the Georgia election interference case against Donald Trump has indicated he'll rule within the next 2 weeks. I'm Norman Hall.
All ahead on America in the Morning. The Supreme Court has moved up its decision date regarding whether former President Trump can appear on the primary ballots in 3 states, with a response expected sometime today.
The Colorado Supreme Court decided late last year that Trump is disqualified from being president again because of his efforts to undo his defeat, which of course culminated in the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Since then, the Maine Secretary of State and a lower court judge in Illinois have both decided that Trump should not be on those states' primary ballots. Among the amendments to the Constitution that were adopted in the aftermath of the Civil War is the 14th Amendment, and a part of the 14th Amendment bars former office holders who engaged in insurrection from holding office again. And the Supreme Court has never considered how it applies and how it should be interpreted. So this is a groundbreaking case.
Correspondent Mark Sherman reporting. GOP presidential candidate Nikki Haley has defeated Donald Trump in the Republican primary in the District of Columbia. A day ahead of Super Tuesday, correspondent Jackie Quinn reports.
More victories on the table for Donald Trump.
We put on a rocket to the Republican nomination. It's been a rocket.
He's won the Missouri caucuses and has added to his delegate lead with Michigan's allocations. And there's voting in Idaho as well. The former president's campaigning in North Carolina ahead of Super Tuesday, making recent crimes committed by migrants illegally in the U.S. a focal point.
If Joe Biden's illegal alien migrants do not go back to their countries, we will never get our country back.
Rival Nikki Haley's also in North Carolina, saying she's the only candidate focusing on what American households are worried about.
No one is talking about the debt. No one's talking about how tough things are out there.
Tuesday brings 16 state primaries.
And Putin, has so little respect for Obama that he's starting to throw around the nuclear word today. You heard that, nuclear. He's starting to talk nuclear weapons today.
A chunk of Republican voters in early contest states say they won't cast their ballots for Donald Trump as president. Former President Trump celebrating 3 easy contest wins this past weekend.
The radical left Democrats rigged the presidential election in 2020, and we're not going to allow them to rig the presidential election of 2024.
But AP VoteCast surveys find there is weakness among Republican voters who say they won't vote for the former president if he's the nominee in November. Nikki Haley is suggesting she won't endorse Donald Trump for president if he becomes the party's nominee. Haley was asked on NBC's Meet the Press if she thinks Donald Trump would uphold the U.S. Constitution if he's reelected.
I don't know. When you go in and you talk about revenge, when you go in you talk about, vindication, when you go in you talk about what does that mean?
How long will Haley stay in the race?
First, let's see what happens on Super Tuesday.
Trump's delegate count after the weekend is now 244, 10 times what Haley has garnered. I'm Jackie Quinn.
An update on wildfires in Texas and blizzard conditions in California when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. And thanks for listening. You're with America in the Morning. And your late March winter weather forecast. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist Carl Erickson.
Typically, as we head toward and through spring, the threat for severe weather increases across the nation, and that will be true today. As plenty of moisture streams northward from the Gulf of Mexico in advance of an approaching cold front, the stage will be set for rounds of showers and heavier thunderstorms over eastern Texas and Louisiana, northward through Arkansas, eastern Oklahoma, and southern Missouri. Localized damage in wind gust and flash flooding will be the primary threats in these areas, but an isolated tornado cannot be ruled out. Showers and storms will also be found over Mississippi and Alabama into Florida. Widespread severe weather is not expected. Some showers will also extend northward to the Tennessee Valley. Meanwhile, a storm off the east coast will clip the eastern Carolinas and southeastern Virginia with periods of rain. This rain will expand northward into the mid-Atlantic tonight. Much of the northeast will have dry and mild weather today, although there'll be a lot of low clouds around from Philadelphia and New York City northward through New England, even spotty drizzle around this morning near the coast. Showers will dampen parts of the Midwest and upper Great Lakes, while late day and evening thunderstorms will erupt over western and northern Illinois into southern Wisconsin. Some of these storms may turn severe with large hail and damaging winds and impact places around Chicago this evening. High pressure will promote dry weather over much of the northern and central plains and back into the southwest. Meanwhile, the Pacific Northwest will remain stormy with periods of rain over western parts of Washington and Oregon into northern California, with heavy snow in the mountains. Snow will also spill over into northern and central parts of the Rockies. And that's the weather across America. In New York City today, mostly cloudy, high 55. Meanwhile, in Los Angeles, partly sunny with a high of 65. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Carl Erickson.
Follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. Historic wildfires in the Texas Panhandle are still raging and are the size of a number of states. Correspondent Clayton Neville has the latest.
The Smokehouse Creek fire in the northern Texas Panhandle has burned over 1 million acres. As of Sunday, it was 15% contained. Close to 200,000 acres torched in another 2 fires combined. Those about 60% contained.
There are about 400 to 500 structures that have been destroyed.
Early damage estimates by Texas Governor Greg Abbott.
The largest fire in the history of the state of Texas cut a path so large that it exceeds the size of some states in our country. And it would have been far worse and far more damaging, not just to property, but also to people, but for those firefighters.
Texas Department of Emergency Management Chief Nim Kidd says the cause of the fire is still being looked into.
I'm going to say we're going to continue to work with our local partners to do cause and origin determination. I would say all of that is still under investigation at this time, and I have received no official report yet.
Weather conditions certainly a factor when it comes to how rapidly the fire is spread. High winds have made it tough to contain the blaze. Red flag warnings in effect, of course, in the Panhandle, north into Oklahoma, even parts of New Mexico and Colorado, as the risk for fire is high. The Texas wildfire is something the U.S. Department of Homeland Security is watching closely.
Our hearts break to those, of course, who've lost their lives, their families, who've lost their homes. More than 1 million acres have burned.
Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas brought up climate change while speaking with CNN's State of the Union.
We are in winter, and this is the largest fire in Texas history. We are seeing unprecedented blizzards in the north of California. We, as a country and as a world, have to be ready for the increasing effects of extreme weather caused by climate change. It's a remarkable phenomenon, and it will manifest itself in the days to come, and we have to prepare for it now.
Meanwhile, Texas communities left with blackened fields and dead livestock. Their homes burned down in the deadly blaze. As many as 2 people reported dead. Firefighters still working to contain the fire, and disaster relief groups from across the country arriving to the region to help out. I'm Clayton Neville.
Blizzard conditions have slammed parts of Northern California, some areas receiving as much as 6 inches of snow per hour. Correspondent Julie Walker reports the powerful storm has knocked out power, and for some, they may have to dig out from as much as 18 feet of snow.
Snow showers continuing Sunday in the Sierra Nevada.
It is a little harder for people that are not from here because a lot of times they make trips and they're not prepared. A lot of people will get stuck and they can't get out. So they got to either get a tow truck to get them out. But if you're local, you understand that.
Rudy Isla, who works at a restaurant in Truckee that's been open all weekend, says it took him longer to get his car out than to drive to work.
I had a shovel to get out my car out the driveway. Good 40 minutes worth of shoveling.
The National Weather Service says Truckee and other similar areas forecast to get 3 to 6 feet of snow when it's all over, but the higher elevations, 12 to 18 feet. In fact, most ski resorts closed because of the storm.
Big concerns in terms of long-lasting widespread power outages potentially from the winds alone, and also concerns of roof collapse with that much snow.
Meteorologist Justin Collins.
Quite the impressive storm, and especially combined with the wind.
Still, Isla says at the restaurant it's another day in the Sierra Nevada. I'm Julie Walker.
Fast food prices and Boeing's new focus when America in the Morning returns after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Welcome back. Keep an eye on the gas pump prices as OPEC announced it'll be extending their oil production cuts into June, saying they are acting in coordination with a number of member states. The Saudis said that the 1 million barrels a day that was cut last July will be gradually returned, depending upon market conditions. However, originally, when OPEC announced their cut, non-OPEC members, the United States and Guyana, stepped up production. So much that the U.S. is now the world's largest oil producer, averaging more than 13 million barrels a month. And on how we'll find markets opening today, here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning after a winning start to March last Friday. The S&P 500 index and the NASDAQ each open at fresh all-time highs again this morning.
What the market's telling me is that it can handle a little bit of inflation. It can handle the Fed delaying these cuts. It's a continuation of what we saw last November when the Fed embarked on its verbal pivot. And I think that this kind of move was inevitable.
314 Research's Warren Pies on CNBC. And it was a good weekend to check on your investments. They were up so much. Boeing wants to buy back fuselage maker Spirit Aerosystems.
Just seems to be like one production problem after another. Manufacturing flaws, everything from misdrilled holes to fuselage skins not being lined up right. And the maker of the fuselage, probably the most key supplier Boeing can have when you're making an airplane, is Spirit Aerosystems. Boeing spun it off almost 20 years ago, and now it's trying to get a handle on these problems, which kind of culminated in this January 5th accident on Alaska Airlines. We've all seen the video of kind of that gaping hole in the 26th row of the plane. A door plug blew out.
CNBC's Leslie Josephs. Medicare with a win for older Americans. AstraZeneca's challenge to the Biden administration's drug price negotiations has been rejected by a judge. CVS Health and Walgreens will start selling the commonly used abortion pill mifepristone this month at pharmacy locations. The FDA approved the sale in states where it's legal. They won't provide it by mail. U.S. officials with a spring break warning for Americans heading to Mexico, where parts are unsafe because of crime. The State Department also issued a recent warning for Americans heading to the Bahamas.
The fast food industry watching what's coming out of the Golden State.
Well, those businesses in California have less than a month until California's minimum wage goes up for fast food workers April 1st.
Yeah, $20 an hour specifically for the fast food sector. Huge. It's going to be the highest in the nation. Pricing again could go up as a result of that. You've heard the McDonald's franchisees talking about that. And one thing I think is really fascinating is that some restaurants, I would have to imagine, will look for more ways to automate the process.
CNBC's Kate Rogers. On the coming week's watch list, investors going to be on hold for the big February employment report, which comes at the end of this week on Friday. Other highlights this week include Fed Chair Jay Powell's regular testimony to Congress. We get more earnings reports from retailers like Target, Costco, Nordstrom, and Kroger, to name a few. EV maker Rivian will unveil a new, smaller SUV. President Biden gives the State of the Union address on Thursday night. And this whole week, starting this morning, it's Oscar week in Hollywood with the Academy Awards this Sunday night.
CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. Georgia prosecutor in the hot seat when America in the Morning returns after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Welcome back. U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris was in Alabama over the weekend to mark Bloody Sunday for the 59th anniversary of the attack on civil rights marchers in Selma. In a speech at the event, she also demanded that the Palestinian terror group Hamas and Israel agree to a 6-week ceasefire. And in some of the strongest comments by a Biden administration official to date, urges the Israelis to boost aid deliveries to Gaza, saying innocent people were suffering a, quote, humanitarian catastrophe. Those comments came after the U.S. airdropped 38,000 meals into Gaza in coordination with Israel and Jordan and are planning more aid drops in the coming days. America in the Morning continues. From Georgia, it's not expected to be long before we hear a decision involving the prosecutor charged with heading up that state's election interference probe. Correspondent Norman Hall reports.
The judge overseeing the Georgia election interference case against Donald Trump has indicated he'll rule within the next 2 weeks on whether to remove Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis from the case over a romantic relationship with the top prosecutor. Attorneys for Trump and his co-defendants told Judge Scott McAfee that keeping the DA on the case threatens to undermine the public's confidence. Willis's office, meanwhile, said the defendants have failed to provide any evidence of any financial benefit to Willis from the relationship with Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade. Willis and Wade say the relationship ended last summer. I'm Norman Hall.
America in the Morning for Monday, March 4th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay, senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
Super Tuesday's almost here. I'm Clayton Neville.
The race to succeed Mitch McConnell as Republican Senate leader is in full swing. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
The U.S. says Israel has agreed to a framework for a ceasefire in Gaza. I'm Mimi Montgomery.
An abortion pill will be available in a few states within weeks. I'm Mike Hempen.
Malaysia's government says it may renew the hunt for the missing Malaysia Airlines flight MH370. I'm Rika Ann Garcia.
Big crypto is spending big money for Super Tuesday. I'm Chuck Palm.
I'm Margie Zaraletta with an entertainment update.
There was a sandstorm at the box office this weekend. I'm Kevin Carr.
Back after these messages. Welcome back here with America in the Morning as we begin the first full week of March. AccuWeather.com meteorologist Carl Erickson has the Monday forecast.
There will be several areas across the nation today that will be dealing with wet and potentially stormy weather. The most widespread area will be found over the lower Mississippi Valley and Gulf Coast states. Rounds of showers and heavier thunderstorms will be found over eastern Texas and Louisiana northward through Arkansas, eastern Oklahoma, and southern Missouri. Localized damage and wind gusts and flash flooding will be the primary threats in these areas, but an isolated tornado cannot be ruled out. Showers and storms will also be found over Mississippi and Alabama into Florida. Although widespread severe weather is not expected in these areas, downpours can lead to reduced visibility, ponding of water in area streets, and slower travel. Some showers will also extend northward through the Tennessee Valley. Showers will also dampen parts of the Midwest and Upper Great Lakes, while late day and evening thunderstorms will erupt over western and northern Illinois into southern Wisconsin. Some of these storms may turn severe, with large hail and damaging winds the primary threats, and impact places around Chicago this evening. Meanwhile, a storm off the East Coast will clip the eastern Carolinas and southeastern Virginia with periods of rain. This rain will expand northward in the mid-Atlantic tonight and can reach as far north as New York City by tomorrow morning. The other area of stormy weather will be found over the Pacific Northwest, with periods of rain over western parts of Washington and Oregon into northern California, with heavy snow falling across the mountains. Snow will also spill over into the northern and central parts of the Rockies. Meanwhile, high pressure will promote dry weather over much of the northern and central plains and back into the southwest. Much of the northeast will have dry and mild weather today, although there'll be a lot of low clouds around from Philadelphia and New York City northward through New England, even spotty drizzle around this morning closer to the coast. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist Carl Erickson.
I'm John Trout. Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. The primary event known as Super Tuesday is tomorrow. All eyes are on Nikki Haley, who just won her first primary against former President Trump. Following the campaigns, Correspondent Clayton Neville.
President Biden and former President Donald Trump each expecting to cruise to victory on Tuesday. 15 contests for Republicans and 16 for Democrats. From Alabama to Arkansas, Texas to California, Colorado, Utah, Tennessee, Vermont, all among states holding primaries on Tuesday, a critical time in the election season as Americans head to the polls, some for the first time in a presidential election.
This is a super exciting time for me, both as a citizen of America, a voter for sure, full circle moment for sure to be able to vote, cast my vote, my own opinions, my own decision, my own choices on who I want to lead our country.
It's such a privilege to get to actually be an active part of the democratic process.
For Republicans, former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Nikki Haley, still in the race after losing Michigan and her home state of South Carolina.
It's going to be over Tuesday night when Super Tuesday ballots come in because there is no path to victory for Nikki Haley.
Republican Congressman Byron Donald spoke with Fox News.
In some of these early states, they allowed independents and Democrat voters to vote on the Republican side when it comes to picking a nominee in these states. And even with that influx with some independents and Democrats, Donald Trump overwhelmingly won.
Haley will campaign in Texas tonight on the eve of the primary.
You know, I think Texas is very important. I mean, I think you look at the fact that, Texas is a state where you've got a lot of patriotic Americans. They understand that this is a crucial time. They know that it's the time for a new generational leader that can put in 8 years of hard work to get our country back on track. And so we wanted to come and see the people and talk to them and let them know that, look, we're in this because we think our country's worth fighting for.
For Democrats, many political experts looking closely at the numbers. Support for President Biden fell in Michigan as calls for a ceasefire in Gaza get louder, and some Democrats threaten the president with their votes. I'm Clayton Neville.
On the Sunday shows, the race to become the next leader of Senate Republicans was in the spotlight as senators discussed what they were looking for in a Mitch McConnell successor. John Stolnis has more from Washington.
Following McConnell's shocking announcement last week that he would step down as Republican leader this fall, a handful of his colleagues are working behind the scenes to position themselves as his successor. John Thune, John Barrasso, and John Cornyn, who watchers of the succession plan are dubbing the Three Johns, are the presumed top candidates. One of Thune's supporters, fellow South Dakotan Mike Rounds, says whoever gets the job has to do more than just look to make certain individuals happy.
As a Senate, our obligation is to look long term. We're elected from every single state, and we want to take care of our individual states. But we've also got the bigger picture of constitutionally what is right.
Speaking on ABC's This Week, Rounds says, like McConnell, Thune would maintain independence from whoever becomes president, including Donald Trump.
I want someone who will work with a president, but who also will stand his own ground.
Senator Mark Wayne Mullen tells CNN State of the Union he's unsure if former President Trump will insert himself into the process.
My advice to President Trump, which, President Trump's his own man, he's going to make his decision, and he does a good job in that, is to kind of stay out of the race. Because it's a lose-lose situation. He needs to work with whatever leader is there. And let me tell you, whatever leader's there understands that they're going to have to work with President Trump, too. So it's really not in his best interest to lean in the race at this point. However, if he chooses to do it, it will make a difference.
Rounds agrees.
He's the Republican frontrunner. He's going to have, a voice in it. We recognize that. But we also know that in the Senate, we've got a lot of independent thinkers as well.
Republican Senator Ron Johnson on The Hill Sunday says he could potentially throw his hat into the ring as well, and has written a letter to his colleagues to come together and chart a path forward.
What I asked for in this conference is let's discuss a mission statement, let's establish goals, and then let's figure out exactly the process for electing a new leader.
John Stolnis, Washington.
In the Middle East, the U.S. over the weekend flew 2 cargo transport planes over the Gaza Strip, airdropping food into the enclave, which came before Vice President Kamala Harris urged Hamas and the Israelis to begin an immediate 6-week ceasefire. As correspondent Mimi Montgomery reports, Israel has signed off on a framework for a ceasefire. However, their request to know how many of the more than 100 hostages that the terror group is holding and the condition of those still living continues to go unanswered.
Given the immense scale of suffering in Gaza, there must be an immediate ceasefire. for at least the next 6 weeks, which is what is currently on the table.
A senior U.S. administration official says Israel has essentially endorsed a framework of a proposed Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal, adding that it's now up to Hamas to agree to it. The comments come before mediation talks were to resume in Egypt, with hopes of brokering a deal to pause fighting before the holy month of Ramadan. A deal would also allow aid to reach hundreds of thousands of desperate Palestinians in northern Gaza, many facing starvation.
Even though you can pack an awful lot into a military aircraft, you can't replicate the size and scale and scope of a convoy of 20 or 30 trucks. It's still the best way to get the maximum amount of assistance in.
According to the official, the proposal includes a 6-week ceasefire and release of hostages considered vulnerable, including the sick and wounded, elderly, and women. Hamas are expected to respond to mediators Qatar and Egypt. I'm Mimi Montgomery.
When we return on America in the Morning, abortion pill arrives at pharmacies and new hope for answers in the disappearance of Malaysian Airlines Flight 370. Those stories and more when America in the Morning returns after these messages. I'm John Trout. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. An abortion pill will become available at 2 major pharmacy chains in a number of states in the coming weeks. Correspondent Mike Hempen reports.
A spokeswoman for CVS Health says the company will start filling prescriptions for mifepristone in Rhode Island and Massachusetts in the weeks ahead. And a spokesman for Walgreens says the drugstore will begin dispensing the medication within a week at locations in New York, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, California, and Illinois. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre says the Biden administration is pleased with the announcements.
Many women will soon make the option to pick up their prescription at a local certified pharmacy, just as they would for any other medication. The administration continues to encourage all pharmacies that want to pursue this option to seek certification.
The moves by CVS and Walgreens come more than a year after the U.S. Food and Drug Administration finalized a rule change that broadened availability of abortion pills to many more pharmacies. The Supreme Court is weighing a challenge from conservative groups who are seeking to reverse mifepristone's approval or roll back policies that have made it easier to obtain. I'm Mike Hempen.
Many in Texas are in mourning after the funeral for an 11-year-old girl who went missing on her way to school and days later was found dead in a river, allegedly killed by someone her family knew. Correspondent Jackie Quinn reports.
At St. Joseph Catholic Church in Livingston, Texas, little Audrey Cunningham was remembered by her family and community. Father Paul Cahan told mourners her death shows how fragile life can be.
Don't ever take your family for granted.
And says never wait to show love to your children.
Do not wait until tomorrow to say, I love you. Thank you. I'm proud of you.
A friend of the family, Don McDougal's charged with capital murder in Audrey's death. He was able to avoid registering as a sex offender after a previous encounter with a little girl. Victims' advocates and Audrey's family are vowing they'll pressure lawmakers to close that loophole to try to keep other children safe. I'm Jackie Quinn.
It's been almost a decade since Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 dropped off radar and was never heard from again. As correspondent Rika Ann Garcia reports, there's a new search being proposed, one that'll be looking at a different area of the turbulent Indian Ocean.
Malaysia's government says it may renew the hunt for the missing Malaysia Airlines flight MH370 10 years after its disappearance. This comes after a proposal from a U.S. technology firm for a renewed search in the southern Indian Ocean, where the plane is believed to have crashed. In Malaysia, a memorial event commemorated the 10-year anniversary of the crash, where Malaysia's Minister of Transport has highlighted his government's dedication to the search.
No reluctance, as I've mentioned numerous times. As far as Malaysian government is concerned, we are committed to that search, and the search must go on.
In the decade that has passed, families of the victims remain determined to uncover the truth to what happened to their loved ones. I'm Rika Ann Garcia.
Pro-Palestinian protests in New York City and San Francisco turned violent over the weekend. At the Global Day of Action for Palestine in San Francisco on Saturday, police report some of the several hundred marchers became unruly and began committing crimes ranging from assault to property damage and vandalism, injuring several officers who used pepper spray to disperse the crowd. In New York, at least 11 demonstrators were arrested in clashes with police, and tensions escalated when officers closed off Times Square after an Uber driver believed he found a hand grenade in his car after dropping off a pair of people heading to that march. The device was later found to be non-explosive. Crypto giants are looking to buy a bit of political influence this year, spending over $100 million on tomorrow's Super Tuesday races. Here's Chuck Palm with that in today's Tech Report.
Independent research group Open Secrets tracks money in U.S. politics and says that crypto is playing a big factor in the elections. Crypto-funded super PACs are spending millions of dollars on Super Tuesday primary contests in California, Alabama, and Texas to boost crypto-friendly candidates and defeat those pushing for more regulation. The industry super PACs, or independent fundraising groups, Fair Shake, Protect Progress, and Defend America Jobs, are backed by funds from Coinbase and the Winklevoss twins, rumored to have spent at least $13 million in Tuesday's primary races, according to Reuters analysis. Depending on how candidates perform on Tuesday, dozens of races will be whittled down to 2 contestants and will indicate how much influence the increasingly wealthy crypto executives may be able to wield in November. The Federal Election Commission reports in total the 3 super PACs have raised just over $100 million since January 2023. Tell us what you think at allthetoptech.tech. I'm Chuck Palm.
America in the Morning's Robert Workman has Monday Sports.
NBA Sunday, the Celtics walloped the Warriors 140-88 for their 11th consecutive victory, outshooting Golden State 55% to 39 and nailing 51% of their three-pointers to a measly 17% for the Dubs. Boston, now 48-12, has won 3 games by at least 50 points this season. No NBA team had ever done that. Thunder shaded the Suns, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander with 35 for the West leaders. Clippers tripped the Timberwolves, 32 for Kawhi Leonard.
We're trying to get better every night, so the next game is always the biggest game.
Knicks knocked off the Cavaliers. Cleveland falls a half game behind the Bucks in the Central Division. Magic pounded the Pistons. Orlando moves a half game ahead of Miami in the Southeast. Spurs surprised the Pacers. Sixers slipped past the Mavericks, and the Raptors got by the Hornets. College basketball, number 3 Connecticut stomped Seton Hall. The defending national champions lock up their first outright Big East Conference title in 25 years. Caitlin Clark passed Pete Maravich for the all-time NCAA scoring record, pouring in 35 to lead the number 6 Iowa women over second-ranked Ohio State on Senior Day in Iowa City.
Like, honestly, if you would have told me that before my college career started, I would have laughed in your face and been like, no, you're insane.
Clark has 3,685 points as she heads into her final college postseason before going to the WNBA. Soccer, the U.S. women shut out Colombia in the quarterfinals at the CONCACAF Women's Gold Cup. They advanced to face Canada in the semifinals Wednesday in San Diego. NHL, the Kings drilled the Devils 5-1. Philip Deneau with a hat trick. Wild rallied past the Sharks 4-3. Kirill Kaprizov leading the charge with his second hatter in less than 2 weeks. Wins for the division-leading Canucks and Jets, along with the Coyotes and Oilers. And Oklahoma softball's record 71-game winning streak ended Sunday with the Sooners' loss at home to Louisiana. OU is the 3-time defending national champion. That's Monday Sports.
Thank you, sir. When we return on America in the Morning, update on court proceedings centered on the set of the movie Rust after these messages. Back now on America in the Morning. The trial involving the tragedy on the set of the movie Rust continues today, and there's more fallout over a Wendy Williams documentary. Margie Zaraletta has that in our entertainment update.
Director Joel Souza has testified he felt like he had been hit with a baseball bat when a bullet hit his shoulder on the set of the Alec Baldwin movie Rust in 2021. The same bullet killed cinematographer Helena Hutchins when Baldwin pointed a gun during a rehearsal and it went off. Weapons supervisor Hannah Gutierrez-Reed is on trial for involuntary manslaughter. Baldwin will be tried in July.
Freedom, freedom.
The museum at Bethel Woods in New York is collecting the memories of people who attended Woodstock in 1969 before they're gone forever. Curators are traveling the country to collect oral histories of attendees and have amassed more than 500 so far.
What if Paula Treaties were still alive? Enough.
The executive producers of the Lifetime documentary Where is Wendy Williams say they did not know she had dementia. Lifetime had made 2 other projects about former talk show host Wendy Williams and thought Where is Wendy Williams would be an extension of that. While producers shot scenes of Williams drunk, belligerent, and moody, they did not know she had dementia until her son told them. That's when filming stopped. I'm Archie Zaraletta.
It took more than 2 months into March now, but we do have the first blockbuster weekend of the year in theaters. Kevin Carr has that story.
Denis Villeneuve's epic sequel to Dune dominated theaters this weekend.
May thy knife chip and shatter.
Dune Part 2 devoured $81 million at the box office, scoring the highest weekend gross since Taylor Swift's concert film premiered in October.
This is a form of power that our world has not yet seen.
Close to half of the tickets sold were for premium large format screens like IMAX, which helped propel the sci-fi epic to the high end of expectations and offering a shot in the arm to struggling movie theaters.
You are not prepared for what is to come.
After leading the box office for 2 weeks, Bob Marley One Love grossed $7.4 million for a distant second.
I think I'm supposed to help.
The faith-based drama Ordinary Angels brought in $3.8 million for third place, while Sony's Madam Web crawled into fourth place with a measly $3.2 million.
I don't understand what's happening.
The latest page in the superhero fatigue narrative, this Spider-Man spin-off is seeing one of the lowest grosses for a modern comic book film. Finally, in fifth place with $3.1 million was another faith-based entry, The Chosen, episodes 7 and 8. Fathom Events continues to capitalize on airing episodes of this biblical series in theaters. Next week, the giant sandworms will fight an imaginary friend and a kung fu panda for box office dominance. I'm Kevin Carr.
America in the Morning for Monday, March 4th, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.